Roll call, I think everybody's here except for, in person, except for Deb who's online. Scott's on his way.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be up in a moment. Next order of business is approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, next order of business is approval of the minutes.
How about if the like additions and deletions?
Did I jump over something?
For the agenda.
Agenda additions.
Oh, sorry, yes, did you,
We didn't ask for any additions
I'm
or
sorry.
deletions.
I couldn't catch it. Sorry.
sorry,
Well,
you're right,
super
no, you're
quick.
right, you had said so. Any additions or deletions or changes?
Just one change. I'd like to make a motion to move student reports above administrative reports. And reason being, I'm really anxious to hear what they have to say. I'm sure they're anxious to get it off their chest, so. That's it.
Any discussion?
That's fine.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So student reports will be above the administrator reports. All right. Moving on to approval of the minutes. The October 19, 2023 meeting.
I'm sorry, I wasn't looking, so I have no idea whose mouth
That
that
was
was.
Kate.
Thank you.
I'll second. I'll second it.
So all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All right. So now we are at student reports.
Okay, so I just want to start off by saying basketball started this week. And so there's a girls varsity team and there's two boys teams, a JV and a varsity. And I know that a lot of my friends were really excited and they're really excited about the holiday tournament coming up, which is December 12th. And the girls play at 6, the boys play at 7:30. And then indoor track is also starting today. There's a lot of new people doing indoor track and I know they're really excited about it. They were kind of nervous, but they were looking forward to it. And then for spring carnival, we did last year and we did it the 2 days before break. So we did it Thursday and Friday. And it was a little chaotic last year because it was a full day on Thursday and a half day on Friday. So instead, this year, we still have a full day on Thursday. We're going to run a half day schedule and then like for regular academic classes and then we'll just do activities in the afternoon. So it like breaks it up a little bit. And then on Friday, we'll have just activities so it can still be fun. And then we're trying to figure out another activity day or like something fun that we can do in March because March was like a really long month for students and teachers. And then we also have a break time in the mornings, which is really nice. It's between second and third period. And it just gives us like a 20-minute break where we can like get food, we can check in with teachers if we need. Like the cafeteria offers like egg sandwiches and like yogurt, like it's really good. And you can like socialize and upperclassmen can get coffee and hot chocolate in the office, which I know me and Jack love. And then it's just really nice with the built-in break time. It was a really good idea.
The school play was in early November. They played for 2 nights. I know a lot of the cast and crew of that were really happy with how it went. And the spring musical will be the Addams Family. Auditions will be open to middle school and high school as opposed to just high school, which is what the play usually is. There's been a lot of talk about students looking forward to auditioning in it and performing for it. And then we have a bit about the student response to the 6-period schedule. It's a little bit mixed. Some students prefer the 8-period day or an AV block schedule because the AV days will divide the workload throughout the year and make it easier for them to fully focus on just a couple of classes for that semester if they're artists work into that. But an 8-period day also allows more flexibility for academic classes every period. The 6-period day has limited spaces, so a lot of students found that academics were only during certain periods, and then they would have to pick and choose between certain academics that they wanted to take because there were limited spaces.
And we're still, I'm on prom committee. We're still trying to figure out where we're gonna have prom. I think we might do it at the Rockingham barn, which was really nice. but we have to like double check and see about that. But yeah.
When you talk about limited spaces in the academic classes, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so there's only 6 periods as opposed to the 8 periods. So then there's the classes are like kind of there's classes at the same time that students at certain grade levels would be eligible to take. So it wasn't like spaced out depending on the age.
I see.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you. It's good to know.
All right, so now we'll move on to administrator reports.
All right, let's see. Last month, there was the VSA, the Vermont Superintendent Association, Vermont School Board Association joint meeting at Lake Maury. Paul Orzechowski and I attended workshops on the upcoming new model policy on wellness and comprehensive health. We went over the updated local wellness policy guide, which we will all be addressing at the next policy committee meeting, which is on Monday. The policy covers goals around nutrition education and food service, physical education, and activity and comprehensive health education. There are nutrition guidelines, and just as a reminder for everyone, that call for all food that is served, sold, or provided for free in any school to meet the, quote, smart snacks standards. I cannot say that multiple times. A quick reminder for people of what those are. A snack or entree has to meet general nutrition standards. You can imagine that that means it's not supposed to be 90% sugar or saturated fats. Whole grain should be a first ingredient, or whole fruit, or dairy, or protein. A combination food that contains at least a quarter cup of fruit or vegetables, a quarter cup of raisins with enriched pretzels is the example that they give. I know that would be everybody's first choice. All food served within the school has to meet standards for calories, sodium, fats, total sugars. And that includes things that are being done during school days for fundraisers or for parties, and that is difficult for people to remember. That you have to have, you have to make sure that everything is being followed in order to not be running up against those smart snack standards. That doesn't mean that food cannot be, that doesn't mean it can't be used for fundraisers. You just can't sell it during school hours. So it would have to be done outside of school hours and would have to be consumed outside of school hours. So all of those cupcakes.
No more bakes in.
Other than they have to happen outside of normal school hours in order to meet these standards. Don't get angry at me. That's
This is new, or this is just the way it's always been?
that's the way it's been for about the last 20 years. There are some new updates to the policy. Most of these are already in the policy that include from pre-K through grade 12, at least 30 minutes of physical activity opportunity in or around the school day. We will be convening to go along with the new policy guidelines, a local wellness team that includes parents, students, food service personnel, PE and health teachers, the school board members, administrators, public and school health professionals, that's our school nurses, counselors, and clinicians. We have to monitor all of our programs to ensure compliance. Sound great? So we'll talk about that at the policy committee meeting and putting that committee together on Monday. Paul and I also attended the budget and financial oversight meeting. We've discussed this at the TRSU and Ludlow Mount Holly, and on Tuesday night at our finance committee meeting. There are a number of new challenges with the new education funding formulas. You can find a presentation from the VSBA about this if you didn't attend the meeting that they had or the webinar they were doing on November 14th. That presentation is available on the Vermont School Board Association website, which is vtvsba.org. And the link to the presentation is right at the front of that page. It's a good thing to look at it, even though a lot of what you're going to hear is that there's still not a lot of concrete, secure information about how it will all play out. There was a press release just today around setting the new yield rate. Cheryl will talk with us more about this at our next meeting, but included in that press release is a statement that overall the state of Vermont is looking at some rather large increases to property taxes, and the state is concerned about having that happen, given current housing insecurity. And just another thing for us to be considering when we talk about our budget. Additional information on November 7th and 8th, Emma Vastola, our K-6 literacy coordinator, and I attended the first meetings of a year-long training on helping to elevate the principal supervision process. It's a program run by the Vermont Superintendent Association and the University of Washington's Center for Educational Leadership. Tuesday and part of Wednesday was an introduction to standards for using a continuous improvement tool, like an inquiry cycle, to have a more equity-driven leadership process. So Emma and I will both be working with principals to co-create a shared vision of what an equity-driven leader would look like. All central office leadership team and administrative members have to agree on what that means before we can actually try to make it happen. As with all aspects of school improvement, that shared definition of success is essential for progress. There was lots of reading, lots of conversation with leaders from around the state. We'll be receiving individual coaching, working in small groups, and attending 2 more in-person sessions over the course of the year, providing some really useful partners for creating a more intentional supervisory approach for our principals. I think it will be very valuable. We've got a lot of things that we'll talk about in the course of the agenda. The last thing I wanted to share with everybody was that we had a letter of resignation that will take effect at the end of the year. Nobody leaving now. From one of our veteran teachers. So Frank Kelly from Chester Andover sent a letter to myself, to the school board, that the 2023-2024 school year continues to go well. This week included over 6 hours of celebratory meetings with students, parents, and families. There are a few reminders included, yet overall it was a chance to celebrate students and to support the support their families provide. He wanted to inform me and the board that he will be retiring at the end of this school year. It's been an honor to provide over 20 years of service to the students, parents, families, and communities of Andover, Baltimore, and Chester. Thanks for all you do for Frank Kelly. He's an outstanding teacher. He's been with us for a very long time. We want to congratulate him on moving to his next chapter. Questions?
So now we'll move on to the principal reports. Has everyone read them?
Yeah, hopefully everyone's read it, certainly from the ones that we sent. I have a few add-ons for this month, if that's okay.
Yes.
Is that all right? I promise to talk quickly. Holiday decorations, I want to take a moment just to recognize, from my perspective of being in the building now for, 5 months, and I'm really proud of our students here. They're tremendous in many different ways, as your parents and board members, et cetera, know. But if you came in the front entrance downstairs, you'll notice a lot of the holiday decorations. Well, the students not only prepared those, but they put it all together, and they continue to work in free moments during the day to glamorize and just make our building look well. But it's the pride that they take in doing it. If you look in the glass case outside the office, there's many works of artwork, and I think the young lady's doing that. And Lexi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were one of them. They took probably an hour just like measuring it out and finding where they were going to put things, and then they moved things around for almost a couple of days before they got it right. And to me, that's attention to detail, and listening to their reports tonight, those were totally written by students, for you board members. There's absolutely no input from me other than a little bit of guidance on maybe framing it up, but they did a wonderful job. Wonderful job. So if you have a moment, please take a look at the decorations downstairs, and they're not done yet. So I know Todd will speak a little bit about the sports and everything in his report. Giving you an update, we're almost at 60% of students involved in school activities. I still have to get some of the winter. We've had a large influx of indoor track students. I believe there's almost 20 students doing indoor track, which is phenomenal. So I've got to add those in. Our attendance overall, we're still hanging on. It has not dropped below 92%. We're still at 92.1%. And I'm working on plans for, as we turn the corner at the new year, to encourage kids to be in the building. I think that, you know, the student body supports each other well, as I said earlier, and I think just wanting to be here is a good thing. So we're going to work on that. What else? On Monday, we will be inducting, I believe it's 10 students into our National Honor Society on Monday evening. So if you are free or around, please come and join us. Christmas concert is on December 13th. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
I just had a question about the flood brook visit.
The flood book, I don't have a lot of information. I mean, I know it went well. We had the students here. I think I'll have to report out more at the next meeting if I can, or I can certainly put it out. I know that Ali Oswald took a lot of involvement, as the guidance department did as well, and it went very, very well.
Okay.
So kids were amazed by the building, by the staff, by the classes, participated in their visit well. I heard nothing but good things. So.
Awesome, thank you. There's no other questions?
Oh, it's not here.
Going at Cavendish Elementary School. Things are going really well. It's at Cavendish. We're named Atmos Friendly School in Vermont, the Gold Level Award, which is really exciting. And one of the things you'll see at our school now is we have no idling signs hanging on the fence so that we don't have idling vehicles and buses. The buses pull up and there, I have to remind them to turn their engines off as well. So no idling vehicles. And I really appreciate Andrea Donahue, who submitted the application for it. And she was also recognized as a champion. Asthma champion for the state of Vermont. And she's a really wonderful nurse. She does a great job. So congratulations to her and her work to make us an asthma friendly school. Our playground is all the pieces of equipment are installed. It looks wonderful. Our kids wanted sliding boards. They got 3 more. So everything's in except for one sliding board has to be moved. But other than that, the kids are enjoying it, having a lot of fun. And just want to thank Jennifer Harper for her leadership on overseeing that playground installation. It's finally completed. It's wonderful. We had our Thanksgiving feast, our luncheon at the school, and it was well attended by parents, and it was very, very, very nice. And we want to thank Miss Lori and Miss Jane for their efforts in the cafeteria. And you guys read the rest of the report. Everything else is on track. I'm impressed with the students and their behavior and their academic performance. And I walk around classrooms, I see just a lot of great instruction from the teachers, and the kids are really learning a lot. So it's a good year so far.
Curriculum reports and presentation.
Bill, how are you doing with the search for the 4th grade teacher replacement?
Well, we are looking for a long-term substitute right now. Finding a teacher, there are no candidates have not been there's not a huge pool of candidates for the position. So at this point, we're looking for a long-term substitute, or we're looking at maybe doing something creative in the upper grades with the teaching staff that we have. So we're looking at 2 different options right now. But we'll have it all figured out by the time she leaves. Hopefully, something I have a good plan figured out.
Good.
I I believe we told that we were doing the reports on these.
We have a presentation if you want. We are doing it for December.
If you want to have the presentation, which I think we do, I'm sorry, because we delayed, I have December and November in my head at the same time. So, yeah. All right, Julie, did you?
You have,
Yep.
Okay, so it's my turn this month to give the curriculum instruction and assessment report, and it's been the case this year. We're going to talk a little bit about both math and literacy from these three perspectives. What students are learning, how they're doing, and what we're doing to continue to improve both teaching and learning. So for math, the thing I chose to focus on is some fraction operations, specifically addition and subtraction. As you can see from the slide, there are a couple of things that the research, both in 2009 and in 2020. It's interesting how many of the things we know about how math learning develops over time hasn't changed a lot for a long time. Contextual tasks that allow students to make sense of what the problem is they're trying to solve instead of just doing calculations, important informal methods, and combined with visual models so that students develop their own strategies before leading them toward maybe standard algorithms that might be more efficient. Unit fraction understanding is super important as students develop fraction understanding and operational abilities, and then the properties of operations as well. A little bit more about the research. One of the things the research makes really clear is if we focus too early on symbolic notation and procedural steps, that it can get in the way of number sense and making sense of fraction operations. It's also very dependent on being able to memorize and therefore subject to deterioration. It doesn't stick as well. And then lastly, it is the staying away from those symbols and manipulations until the students have got those understandings and those strategies, and that conceptual knowledge is going to be better for their long-term retention. So here's your math problem for the day. It's a fraction problem. I'll turn it here to the slide.
There's a lot on this slide.
This problem is actually one that some of our teachers work with in a recent training. So let's see, I'm going to show you an approach that could work. And I'm going to highlight as I reveal this approach some of the things that I talked about on the slide that says what's important to understand. So the problem was set up probably inferring that you might go vertically. And if you're like me, that's sort of how you learn this procedure. But you could rewrite the situation numerically in a horizontal fashion. You could also reorder things so that you were focusing on the whole numbers separately from the fractions. There's properties of operations. Some more properties of operations. Obviously, the problem itself had a context to begin with instead of just going over. So here's where we're at this point. Now notice the question did not say how far did she bike. It just said, did she make her goal? So here's where some of the unit fraction and fractional reasoning comes in. I don't need to know what 1/4 and 5/8 is. I just need to know, is 5/8 enough to get me to the goal? And the answer is she did not quite make her goal.
Good answer, Kate. I couldn't add 5/8 and 1/4 though.
I'm going to guess that many of us took approaches like this, and this is an example of the symbolic notation that research warns against. There's a lot going on here, and you can get lost in the numbers and weeds if you haven't. It's not that this is bad.
Right.
It's just that it's not as accessible to all students as the other things are, and it's not as useful and transferable to other things as the strategy that you saw before. Okay, switching to literacy. What are our students learning? Emma asked me to focus on oral reading fluency. I'm going to read from the blue at the bottom of the graphic on the left because it is a little small and I think it highlights the point. Fluency is not an end in itself, but a critical gateway to comprehension. Fluent reading frees cognitive resources to process the meaning of what is being read. So it's not that fluency, which is sometimes translated into speed, but that's not all it is, as you can see from the graphic. It's accuracy, it is speed for efficiency purposes, but it's also something called prosody, which is proper intonation, phrasing, expression. That is part of being a fluent world reader. So when we talk about that, we're talking about all those things. You may remember me talking in some of my math presentations previously about fluency in math. There's a lot of similarities here. What does the research say about fluency? Some of this we already talked about. If a reader is fluent, they are able to comprehend more easily, and therefore they become more confident, and it's a more rewarding experience for them. And it frees up the cognitive load so that you can focus on that comprehension and then using the knowledge that you get from that comprehension instead of focusing so many brain cells and energy on trying to be able to read the text itself. So how do we help develop reading fluency, fluent readers? The research says that guided oral reading practice using decodable and controlled text is the best way to do that. And what we mean by decodable controlled text is use books that use sounds that the students have already had foundational instruction in. You don't want to be introducing them to sounds and words that they haven't been exposed to yet instructionally. That's not controlled and therefore not decodable by those students. If you're using the right text, then guided oral reading practice is a good way to build reading fluency. Okay, so we're switching to how are our students doing and back to math here. I want to talk about sort of 3 grain sizes of data. We've talked a lot in previous presentations about how much we're trying to rely on data to drive instruction and improvement in learning outcomes. At the top level, satellite data is building level and or district level data that points you in a direction and identifies a focus area, but needs more and finer grain sizes to figure out, okay, if you find a focus area, what are you going to do about that? So what I'm showing you as an example for math is this is IXL data K through 12 from our fall benchmark. And the A focus area you might call out here is if you look at 5th grade, the orange section, which is below grade level, got noticeably bigger. So perhaps 5th grade math, which is IXL is a benchmark for math, is a focus area that we should dive deeper into. So the satellite points us in a direction, but then you drill down into another level and say, well, what about math should we be thinking about? So what I called out here is some math level data, like Google Map kind of data. It takes you out of the satellite atmosphere and comes down a little bit to get a little bit narrower in your focus. I pulled out number and operations from the 4 elementary schools for 5th grade from our measures of academic progress growth data. And what you might notice here is that there's a fair amount of variability if you focus on the bar graphs across our buildings. So maybe that's the finer point that we want to put on it. Talk to the schools that show really good results in this particular measure and find out what's going on there that we could then transfer to other schools. Still not real specific about what you can do about it and what instructional shift should happen. That comes from what this particular book that I'm referencing from calls street level data. It's classroom data. It's stuff specific to students. Now, the example I'm showing you here at the top, it's actually small groups of students. So the students in this group 1 section, these are also IXL results for the fraction strand specifically, and trying to keep that fraction strand going. Not only does the technology show us how to group students because they have similar needs, but what those needs are. Same thing for group 2 and group 3. In addition to that, so this would be considered street level data because it does give you specific instructional actions that you can focus on. The same tool will provide individual recommendations at the student level as well, based on the results from the questions they're answering in IXL. Switching to literacy, very similar idea. What Emma's sharing here is elementary school data across all grades in each of the elementary schools in terms of literacy achievement, also from the fall benchmark. And likewise, you could look at various different focus areas that you could zone in on here based on this data, but you want to know what to do about that. So The math level data that she's drilling down into is saying, well, since we talked about reading fluency, what is the data telling us about how we're doing with reading fluency? These 3 graphs here are second grade, and you can see from this pie chart that about a quarter of the students are actually presenting results that show that they're moving into the oral reading realm, and 3/4 of the students are still building foundational skills that would allow them to do that. Second graders, that's to be expected. They're still trying to develop that. But this data here is talking about, well, where are they with those foundational skills? You have the same information down here for grade 3. The good news is that we have more oral reading, but probably not as much as we'd like to see for grade 3. So there's where you're honing in on it. And the foundational skills is telling us where we need to focus efforts a bit. Then you get into classroom data. What kinds of texts are you going to read? What kinds of learning goals are you going to set with students and work them toward so that you're improving the percentage of students who are actually achieving those oral reading fluency levels? Last section, what are we doing to continue to improve teaching and learning? Here's an example. While it came from OGAP training that we're doing, it's actually a general formative assessment cycle that can be used for any content area, really. And we're starting to we have enough critical mass of teachers who've been attending OGAP sessions and understand this process that we're now starting to be able to apply it using classroom data from our programs, everyday math tasks. We could bring them into this from an everyday math lesson, administer a task, analyze those students' work, and make decisions about what to do the next day in the next lesson, or what to do in a small group with a group of students who might be showing the same sorts of needs. This is an example of how you would use street level data to try and make improvements. On the literacy side, recently we completed a second round of learning walks focused on module lessons and what sorts of look-fors we would be looking to see as we're observing classes who are engaged in a module lesson. These are the look-fors. Administrators and teachers were visiting different classrooms across the buildings and surfacing trends and specific things that they were seeing that were looking like they were being really effective, and other things that looked like this where we could look for good areas. And so that data is being analyzed to decide what the next best steps are. As Lauren said, for December, Emma and I will prepare a written report just like we did this month. We don't plan to prepare presentations since there's budget discussions and all kinds of things going on, but we will be available to answer questions. Any questions from you about today? Becky?
How long have you had access to that math level data that you could drill into?
Well, I showed 2 kind of examples. Well, actually both math were from the same. I think we have it going back to like 2013 or 14, actually.
And have you seen, so you're doing data-driven decision-making since 2013. Have you seen improvement in scores? Is it working?
I would push back on the idea that we've done data-driven. Yes.
We have data going back to
How long have
2013.
you been using the data in the way that
For the last couple of years, I think we've really had the focus on data-driven instruction and decision-making. Teachers have been using the data for themselves within their classrooms in a variety of ways, but in terms of a systemic, cohesive way, it's only been for a couple of years.
So,
And that's happening during a time when our ability to give it a focus on it was disrupted.
when do you anticipate seeing results of this data-driven decision making?
I think we're seeing some results now, and I'm gonna say, maybe not the kind of results you're talking about.
I'm not talking about, you're the expert.
Okay, so the kind of results I think we're seeing now is, as a math coach, when I'm talking to a teacher and I can do this sort of thing, we both walk away saying, oh, now I know what I'm gonna do next. Whereas before, the teacher, they were making those sorts of decisions, but based on intuition and inferences, not based on looking at data so much. So I think there's more confidence in those decisions. I think it's linked to research better. When it comes to like outcomes in some of the bar graphs that you saw and moving the percentages on scores, that's a much more complicated question because it's not just about your data-driven decision-making. It's also about we're implementing a new program in literacy. It takes a while for those things to pay off. So there's many other pieces that go into it. And those, I think we've said this before, but what matters is what's happening at the street level. Yes, we want the accountability results to show good things for obvious reasons, but what we really want is student learning to improve. And I think in pockets, you're starting to see that already. How long it's going to take for you to see it sort of in the big picture and roll its way up to things like BTCAP? It's really hard to say because there's so many other areas.
And I agree with you with every ounce of my being, and it's hard to see all that around on the ground.
I know.
It makes you
I know.
worried about the students and their.
Yeah, trust me, it worries me too, because not only did the fifth grade one get big, if you saw the other ones, those got big too. Yeah, and so that also has a lot of factors. It's affected by scheduling, and is there enough time? It's affected by instructional decisions and depth of content knowledge. It's affected by so many things. I think the point is, we're using, right now, the point is, the data makes it really clear, that's an area we need to focus on. And so now let's go figure out what to do about it.
The introduction SU-wide to the idea of everyone in every building, in every classroom, being responsible for conducting a problem of practice data-driven cycle happened in the summer of 2019. So the 2019-2020 year was, at least when I was here as principal in this building, was the first year that everyone was being expected in a cohesive across the SU way to conduct data-informed decision-making. And in general, you expect the first year of any sort of program, you're not looking at results. You're looking at making sure the program is implemented. And that all stopped on March 16th and really did not start up again. But a fair thing to say is that once you have that in place, you're spending the first year making sure, as Julie is saying, that teachers are understanding what the process is there to follow. And within the next year, you should start to see some positive results from it.
And we don't have any changes on the horizon that are gonna disrupt that. I mean, obviously,
you never know.
I don't mean like natural disasters or pandemic things, but like new curriculum.
It depends on how you classify the AOE.
Oh.
But given that we had at the beginning.
That equaled AOE.
Short time, started to call it. Given that at the beginning of last year, all of a sudden we heard that the standardized test was changing with no field testing for it.
Sure.
So we should have the same tests in place.
But those things that are within our control, we're not looking to disrupt things in the very near future.
Because we put, thanks to having Julie and Emma in place, having a new program for EL, having some additional instruction for math, reasonably confident that we should be able to look at data next year and say, we're seeing positive results from that, without hearing people like me saying, wait a minute, it's too soon. Shouldn't be too soon.
Okay, thank you.
How long have these new programs been in place?
Which,
I mean, the math curriculum that you're using now and.
so in the elementary schools, K-6, that everyday math curriculum's been in place for a long time.
Okay, so it's just the way you look at the data.
Yep, right.
Okay, and how about reading?
The literacy program just started rolling out last year.
Right, that's
Right, so
right.
we're in the second year of that implementation. In the middle and high school, it's a little bit different because it's not a curriculum that's purchased.
Yeah.
It's a
subject.
set of proficiencies and teachers are curating the resources they need to get students to what those proficiencies are expected.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? On to the next item, which is the TRSU Facilities Director.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Pretty straightforward tonight, for the most part. All three of your schools are in really good shape. Cavendish, Dale mentioned the playground's complete except for the slide. We've been in contact with Mike Brody. He's working on some plans. He has a little bit different idea than what Jen and I have about where that slide's supposed to go, but it's gonna be on his dime for where that goes. We're advertising for a new facility supervisor. at Cavendish. Joe decided he had some, family issues, and he's moved on. So this was kind of neat. While I was on vacation, we had some heating issues at Cavendish. They have, that school, along with Chester Andover, has some great direct digital controls. I get a phone call 500 miles away, we have no heat in the library, and within 10 minutes, we had the heating problem fixed remotely from Pennsylvania. Next day, we had another classroom with, it was cold, and I was able to take care of that online again. The high school has one classroom that has that, we have one. So just this just saves manpower, hours, and money. Like, it doesn't take long to pay for itself. So there's a wealth of insight. GM and Chester Andover PCBs, we should be seeing, so it's the whole school testing for Chester Andover. We should see those test results tomorrow. That's what I'm hearing from Harper Environmental. We should have those test results back tomorrow. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. Tomorrow's a Friday. I really have a hard time believing I'm going to see some test results on a Friday afternoon. The test results we're looking for GM are the interval testing, which they came in and did some testing on some higher parts per billion classrooms. They didn't do all of them. They're coming back this Saturday to test all of the classrooms that have our carbon air filters in them. So Harper will be back here again Saturday. It's a busy weekend here. We're having the lock-in Friday night. The rec department's in here Saturday morning. Harper will be in here Saturday. We have boys basketball scrimmages in here Saturday. If you're not busy, come on in, we could use your help. The elevator is complete. I showed it to a couple people the other night to get a chance. The elevator came out without a hitch. It took a week or 10 days longer because a couple of his techs went on vacation deer hunting as well, but they came back well with the budget. He's gonna come back over the holiday break and wrap all the doors and the finish. He made some wrong measurements with stainless steel. If you ever worked with stainless, hard to work with. He was off by just a little bit, so he's coming back to finish that up, but the elevator is awesome. The kids are using it, staff's using it. Chester Andover is the most I have to report on tonight. We're working with FEMA, Cheryl and I are, a lot. I mean, I thought working with the state with PFAS and Mount Holly was tough. Working with the federal government is worse. It's complicated, the rules change all the time. It's extremely complicated. When you think they have all the information that they need, they want more or they want it over again. So we've been working with Guidehouse, which is our liaison to FEMA, which I think is even worse. It's very complicated, but we are working on it. Cheryl and I talk about this almost every other day. Julie Hance, our town manager here at Chester, had mentioned to the board about a grant for a parking lot project that I think we're talking about tonight in executive session. So we started looking into it. We applied for the grant. We didn't apply for it. We asked for the information. The grant process is huge. It's huge, pages and pages and pages. So I'm glad we read through it first because one of the things that we needed was approval from our local regional planning committee. So I set up a meeting and I met with the Mount Scottney Regional Planning Committee who oversees this. I talked to them for about an hour. There was somebody from the state that came. We will not qualify for this grant. The grant is more for bike paths and sidewalks. I shouldn't say we wouldn't qualify. We would qualify for a small portion of it. And they were very adamant that even if we applied for this, we're working on the grant's dime, which means the process would add 4 years to the project. He thought maybe 5 to 7 years before we saw any funding on this grant. So it's a lot of work for not a huge return. And we're still gonna have to jump through all the hoops. So we're not giving up on it, but I'd just like to report to you that we did follow through with this. And speaking with the planning committee, that they said that for the amount of work that you're gonna have to do to get even remotely considered for any funding at all, is probably not worth what we'd have to jump through and wait the timing probably won't work out right. So that's where we are with that. We got, met with a company about a lift for the stage. That's part of FEMA as well. I could go into a lot of detail. I'm not going to about FEMA. If you have questions for it, I'd be happy to answer what I know. FEMA is, it's just difficult. I mean, I'm sure anybody from Ludlow can tell you that's dealt with it with a flood. It's complicated, it's hard, and it's frustrating. So we're working on it. We think we're gonna see something there, but we're not sure. So that's where we're at. Anybody have any questions? No questions? Awesome. Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks. So now we're gonna move on to committee reports.
That's me. I'm gonna let Steve start because he came to the RBTC meeting. The November meeting.
It's an incredible facility. It's such an amazing asset. I'm very enthusiastic about it. I've heard more than one compelling success story about students who attained their highest goals and utilized the connection between Green Mountain and the Tech Center to really excel. I'd love to see it utilized better. These were smart, interesting students with a vision about what they want to do in their life. In many ways, conforming to the corporate graduate that we're talking about, solving problems, really working creatively on their goals. I couldn't be more enthusiastic about it.
So we saw a horticultural demonstration. It was cold. They didn't warn us that we would be outside freezing, but these two kids, they climbed the tree. They showed us how they do it, how they get up there, how they get down, all of the safety pieces that they carry in their pack, and how they would go about trimming the tree, and how the decision making went, and it was really fascinating. Okay, so this year right now they have an $82,000 surplus, but that will change. They have an increase in Fall Mountain students enrolling. They're still seeing some COVID impact. They have 26 students more at this time this year than they did last year. Green Mountain students were down by 2. Then we heard about VTVLC, and that is really, since the pandemic, that has been skyrocketing in terms of the number of kids who apply, and they're looking for teachers, and they have 900 students accessing their on-demand programs. And just personally, I'll share that I have a grandson in Burlington High School who is very gifted in math, and he is a sophomore. And during his math class time, he takes calculus on VTVLC. So it's just, it's really great how kids can flexibly plan their program to be able to access things that we may not have here. And just, I've been very impressed. I'll stop there.
Thanks. I'm going to jump over TRSU since the other two I also have to report on. So is there any report from the Transportation Committee?
Not really.
All right, so the TRSU board, again, usually you're getting the same information because there's a superintendent's report. We had our first look at the budget. We discussed the board setting goals, which were also discussed at the retreat, developing the vision statement and creating a board calendar. We set some deadlines for that. Let's see, we got updates and discussed the next steps for the superintendent search. The next meeting is going to be December 14th pretty much it. A lot of it was discussing the budget, which the finance committee heard pretty much everything about that yesterday. So I'll just jump to the finance committee. So we had our first look at the budget. Got a very detailed report from Cheryl. We all have that information to absorb and start thinking about things that we want to discuss and look at. And I believe we set the next meeting for the 18th, the 20th of December. That's right. Thank you. And then the restructuring committee happened. It was a lot of setting things up. So we decided that there will be Zoom and that we will rotate the venues between CTS and here, having Zoom at all of them. We developed or decided to start prioritizing some ideas. So the committee is in the middle of a two-step survey. We should have that soon. And then that next meeting is the 12th of December.
And I just heard back today from NESDEC that they will be able to send someone on Zoom, not in person, but on Zoom to talk with the committee about the
Services they offer.
the services that
Yep.
they provide. Nobody's hired anybody. That's a decision. So they're just going to come and talk about if you wanted them, this is what they could do. So I just, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
They just contacted me today.
Pretty much it. Questions? All right, next on the agenda is public comments. There has been a slight change in that. We've allowed an additional minute per person, so it's now 3 minutes per person.
So I get it.
That'd be mine.
Yep. No one has anything up for that.
All right, so our first member of the public is also Morris Foley.
Felt compelled to speak, seeing board conduct was on the agenda. The word of the day is hypocrisy. After beating the drum for months about being offended or harmed by the word chieftain, the hypocrisy started. Pro-chieftains have been called by some school boards effing idiots, and from Steve's own emails, they're incredibly stupid and usual insipid nonsense. And then there's the photos. There's the swastika photo. It is just insane that you'd have the chieftain headband with a feather on a swastika and trying to use it as a PowerPoint. It doesn't work. It is implying, to me, it implies that the pro-chieftains are white supremacists. Comparing the word chieftain to the extermination of 6 million Jews is just insane. But then when there was a motion brought up to discuss the emails and the photos, it was turned down. There was no discussion. It was voted down 6-4 for no discussion. And that is not what transparency is supposed to look like. And this is not behavior of what should go on in the school board. You know, you have some very good people here, but a lot of this stuff should never have happened, but it certainly should have been discussed on that day. I mean, they had the opportunity to defend themselves and say, okay, you're wrong. This is how it was supposed to be. But that's just not the way. So the 6 that voted not to discuss it, Steve Franny, Josh Schroeder, Kate Lamphere, Lois Perla, Lisa Sanders, and Kate Murphy. I hope everyone will remember that when they go to vote.
Next person is Randy Miles, Chester.
My name is Randy Miles from Chester. I want to thank the representatives who attended the TRSU last meeting and extended the extra minute. I feel that's beneficial to everybody, and I appreciate, action being taken on that. I am here as well to speak any opportunity I can about the name Chieftain, and I really employ all of you to look at this before you take another step forward. Leave it where it lies, let it be, because this is not the easy way to get rid of it. It is not gonna go away that way. Let it be taken out of all our hands and let somebody else decide on this. The information is out there. You need to relook at it and act individually when you go to vote or think about doing something else. Nobody wants this retired as far as the vast majority. You're talking about a very small minority who want this thing retired or gone away. They don't see the implication of this being a racist or anything else. The name is what it is. It doesn't imply the image of a Native American. It simply stands for leaders. So think about that when you're voting no to get rid of this, what you're getting rid of it. Now, I also have a concern with this board. I think there are a lot of great, talented, smart people here. And I really implore you to work together as a team. But I feel there's a group working within a group here, and that's not right. I see the word we a lot. We. That doesn't mean I or you. That means a group or more. You are all one group and you need to work together. Not to solve the world problems, but to solve the one problem that faces you and not extend your power to go beyond that. And that's all I really want to say right now. Thank you very much.
Business. So we are going to review the Vermont Code of Ethics for school board members, and then we are going to sign it again. Lisa's name has been updated, so it'll reflect the full board now. So it reads, as a member of my local school board, I will remember that my primary concerns must be the educational welfare of the students in my district and excellent return on investments for taxpayers. I agree to conduct myself in accordance with the following commitments. I will recognize that a board member's responsibility is to see that the schools are well run, not to run them. Act only as a member of the board and not assume any individual authority when the board is not in session, unless otherwise directed by the board. Give no directives as an individual board member to any school administrator or employee, publicly or privately. Avoid making commitments that may compromise the decision-making ability of the board or administrators. Then under uphold the highest ethical standards, you will not receive anything of value by contract or otherwise from this school district or supervisory union unless it is received as a result of a contract accepted after a public bid, in public recognition of service or achievement, as a board stipend, reimbursement, or expense allowed by law for official duties performed as a member of such board. Not solicit or receive directly or indirectly any gift or compensation in return for making a recommendation or casting a vote. Agree to recuse or remove yourself from board deliberation and votes when necessary to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest. Not agree to hiring of a superintendent, principal, or teacher already under contract with other school districts unless assurance is first secured from the proper authority that the person can be released from his or her contract. And then under respect my peers, constituents, and confidentiality considerations, voice opinions respectfully and treat with respect other board members, administrators, school staff, and members of the public. Maintain confidentiality of information and discussion conducted in executive session and uphold the applicable laws with respect to the confidentiality of student and employee information. And attend all regularly scheduled board meetings insofar as possible. The last sentence is, I agree to abide by principles outlined in the Code of Ethics and will do everything in my power to work as a productive member of the leadership team. And then I'll pass this around for signatures. Public or, oh, sorry.
Is it customary that we usually re-sign this when we have a new member, or do they just sign?
Lauren, actually.
When we've had this, when we've had new people join in the past, we usually just have the other person signing. It seemed to me that given some of the discussion that has happened around some and not just one person's, but multiple board member behavior, that it might be a good idea for everybody to be reminded of the things that we've all agreed to and to look at it again.
And then we do it again in March.
And when you are reorganized and there are other presumably new people that you would commit to.
And is there ever going to be an opportunity to revise it?
This is something that comes to us from the Vermont School Board Association.
There's just some things, I mean, the content of it is fine with me, but the continued use of gendered pronouns is.
Oh, yeah, you could certainly decide that you wanted to add things to it, update it, then it becomes yours. Yeah.
I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Deb Scudder.
Deb?
Should be able to unmute.
Deb, can you hear us?
There you go. I couldn't unmute myself. I think given this code of conduct and from what we heard in public comment, I would like to make a motion that we have the discussion that we should have had at the last meeting about the emails that went around or that were sent out, the inappropriate emails.
For a second.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question? So is this an addition to the agenda?
No, I
It's
think
already
this
approved.
falls under the code of conduct discussion action.
Okay, thank you.
We're,
Can I just ask what the purpose of the discussion would be? What would we? Oh, sorry, Deb.
What was the question?
What is the purpose of the discussion? What are you hoping to achieve?
I just think that they went out and people are upset by them and we need to address it. And without voting to have the discussion, I don't think we should be saying any more. Either we have the discussion or we don't.
there's a motion on the table. Is there more discussion about the motion? Okay, hearing no
Do you
further-
want to have a discussion? I'm just having a hard time. I don't want to go to discussion to, rake Steve over the coals or have I think each of us can go talk to Steve about what was in the email and get his perspective. I just don't know what the purpose of having a public discussion about this is. So without that,
I think. Go ahead first. About raking Steve over the coals, I wasn't sure I wanted to read my statement, but I'm going to. Since it's on the agenda, talking about board conduct, I do think we need to discuss the issue with Steve, his emails and his outbursts. I tried to bring this up a couple meetings ago, but it was shot down by the 6 of you. But now there have been several complaints from the public and one that's taken to the state for their opinion. As a board, we do need to discuss this. This is significant enough that it has to be addressed. Given the stance on other political issues, I'm actually shocked that this board doesn't feel it necessary to talk about this. Steve, I could almost let your controversial email slide. Maybe you were joking, maybe not. But your use of school emails to post sexist and racist pictures offended so many people who don't find it funny. Worst part of that, however, is you haven't even tried to make amends in any way. I wanted this discussed right when it happened to give you the opportunity to explain and maybe even apologize so it didn't escalate, but you didn't. This is what is unacceptable to me, so I'm professionally calling you out. Additionally, I will no longer tolerate you yelling and screaming at other school board members and trying to intimidate them. Most recently, you did this 2 weeks ago in executive session when you stood up and shouted at Adrian, and I should have shut you down then, but I didn't. I can promise you this, it's not going to happen again. Wasn't the first time you've acted in a hostile manner. In fact, your behavior at times gets so hostile that a few of our female board members felt so threatened by you, we now have police presence at our board meetings. You also quite often burst out laughing when someone says something you don't agree with. It's unprofessional, inappropriate, and it's inappropriate conduct for a board member. I'm prepared tonight to make a motion to censor you, but I want to explain, but first let me explain to everyone what censorship is. So I have it clear.
On the table.
I am talking,
There's a
another
motion.
form,
I mean, are you making another motion?
explaining why the motion's on the table.
Okay.
She asked
So this is
for an
an
explanation.
explanation of the motion. Okay, fine, I get it. Sounds like we're making another motion for censorship.
No, we have to address one motion at a
Okay,
time.
one at a time. Great.
A censure is an official reprimand that is used to formally recognize disapproval of one's actions. A person doesn't lose their right to speak or to vote or to make motions. There's no legal consequences that come from a censure. It's a statement of disapproval by the remaining board members. However, I'd really rather hear from you and have the public and your fellow board members receive an apology from you on your own without being forced. You don't have anything to say.
Is there a motion or is there not? Is what I have to say.
There's a motion to have a discussion on the inappropriate emails.
So let's move forward with that one. So we had a motion and then a second. So all in favor of having a discussion about the inappropriate emails, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion on to be made on the motion.
Say that again.
More discussion, like, can I just ask just a question?
Discussion on that particular
Yes.
motion, yes.
I'm struggling. Well, I feel one way about addressing it. I just don't have all the information. I didn't see all the. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm struggling with discussing it publicly. It's because I don't have all of it in front of me to say, this is what I'm addressing. Do you know what I like? That's where my struggle is.
The copies of the emails are probably in the room. They could be shown to you. I think that was the whole reason to just have the discussion, so it didn't have to, all of it didn't have to come out.
Maybe it should be more functional. Tabling this and then seeing all the emails.
I would.
So the motion,
You could take a break.
the motion that we are discussing right now is whether we're going to have a discussion about the emails. Any further discussion on it? So all in favor of discussing the emails, say aye, or we can do a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Katie,
No.
Kate,
No.
Steve,
No.
Lois,
I think we have to discuss.
Lisa. No. Josh,
Yes.
six in favor, 4 opposed.
The motion passes. So if there's going to be discussion,
I think we should start with Steve. Do you want to explain what the emails were, or do you want someone to show them?
I'm sort of conflicted since I just assigned this loyalty thing. One of the most objectionable emails was in response to a conversation in executive session. And in order to really discuss what that was about, I would have to disclose what we were talking about in executive session, which I'm happy to do.
I don't think that's necessary, but I think it's just the inappropriateness of the content.
think you have to look at it as the email was written, which is, I'm trying to remember, it was in response to something that was said in executive session.
All of them? Because I find that hard to believe when there's one that was sexist, there was one that was racist, there was one that was putting down Scotsman, which my husband was really upset about, and I stopped him from coming to the meeting. And I think that it was just completely inappropriate, especially on TRSU email.
I'll agree to that point.
Further discussion about the emails?
Yeah, I've been debating on whether I should speak about it, but my mother was gonna actually come to the meeting, 2 months ago about that. So my mother lived through the Holocaust and dealt with helping in Connecticut areas where there were problems. You have to understand the context of what you said and all of the things you said. You have to understand that there's many people who are still hurting from loss of life. You have to the context of what you say. We all do. We're board members. We are people who are trying to help the community. You have to, we all, every minute, we have to think, we have to have presence of mind to understand what we're speaking to and where we're speaking. You cannot speak that way as a public official. We're a volunteer group, but none of us can speak that way, ever. I cherish all of you people in this room because we are all working toward a goal. You don't speak that way, ever, about anyone. My mother wanted to come down here and I said, no, Mom, because of your heart, it should not happen. Relax, we will talk. We will make amends. I think you need to have some soul searching of your own about how you conduct yourself. We all do. Thank you.
I just want to say that the irony is not lost on me, the outrage over the images that were in the email that I only saw on Facebook, so I have no idea actually what was in the email. But we've had Indigenous people stand here meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, talking about how offensive it is, how they have to send their children to this school with a stereotyped image of an Indigenous person, the associated name of chieftain, and the outrage for, is it satire? I don't know, satirical emails that were in response to a situation where racism is abound just by having our mascot. And that is just, it just had to be said. It is, the irony is not lost on me. It's making me, my heart race a lot.
I would like to say that I haven't seen them all and I don't care to see any more than I have seen. But the one thing I don't know if Steve did this to every member, but he called personally to apologize. So I just wanted to share that.
He didn't call me. And my husband was offended. I was offended as a woman at his Dallas Cowboy cheerleader one. I didn't hear an apology, and I don't hear any remorse.
So I received, I know for certain of one, this swastika one. And I can remember vividly, not necessarily the reasoning behind it, but I can remember a conversation after where I was shocked at what happened in a school. And so that I know that Steve's use of the swastika, obviously he apologizes, but asked a direct question if the public wanted the use of a swastika for a mascot, would you vote for that? And the answer was yes. And so that was one of Steve's outbursts. It was, oh, like that, like you do. And I remember sitting in that seat right where Kate is now, like this. I couldn't believe the question came out, but the answer was vividly what I just said. And so Steve's outburst and why he sent that to me, because I knew where he was coming from personally, from what the question response. And so to speak honestly, it's a powerful image. I wrote that. Personally, it's just a side story so you know where I come from. Resident assistant, this is hard for me. You gotta bear with me on this one. I'll be quick. In college, I was tasked with a pretty challenging floor of young college men, all racist as ever could be, and it was really hard. And so I didn't really know how to address the situation, but you know me, I want to try and fix it. So I posted images of swastikas all over the and actually there were, but before, on the image of the swastika below it was, if you want to discuss further, meet me here. So I had an outrageous amount of students come up there, and I was excited to sit there with 30 young peers, right? And I asked them why they ripped it. Oh, because it's what happened. You know, there was the history of the swastika. And I said, you're exactly right. But how you're behaving amongst each other is just as bad now. And so while that image was portrayed, you know, the Nazis adopted it, used it for what they did, that they all sat there in shock and had a moment of self-reflection. And I could give you all the names if you want. It's a true story. My approach is similar to Steve's. It was the wrong use of that image, but I knew I had to try a group of folks that were really knowledgeable on what that was, knowledgeable of their own actions. So I shared that story with Steve, and that's how I received. Steve did that incorrectly, and he apologized. He did it on the wrong platform. Communication, everybody knows that. He's on that. Steve, I'll agree with the board. Yeah, there are moments where you get jostled and you yell. I don't think that's correct either. But on that particular image, I can speak to why you sent it to me, and I hope that I bring it here to the public and everybody else in the world. That's it. Thanks.
If we were to have a swastika as a mascot, would you approve it if the voters voted for it? And that's what that was the response.
You know, I'm chair, but I'm able to speak. Is that okay with everybody? So for me, my great grandparents were marched to their death. And so just regardless of people's intent, it's an offensive symbol. I did not receive a personal phone call with an apology. I also am not ignorant to what it was. I could tell it was something thing when I looked at it. But it was your intent that irritated me because it wasn't in an intent to shock a bunch of, you know, looking at what they were voting for. It was mocking people that disagree. That's how it well. And, you know, regardless of being yes, it was in just about emails, but it was just to me that told me how you think of people that disagree. I just didn't appreciate how.
Anybody comments on a board that considers.
I don't think anybody on this board said that they would be okay with this. In fact, I wrote that down as a question. I remember the statement that you made to Beth Hart and Honor Ray about if there was a headdress on a swastika, and it was not in executive session. It was in public. So I remember the comment that you made, which when I saw it, I knew exactly what it was referencing, was that particular comment. There was no, vote or discussion to the board, would you be okay? They made that statement. I think it was you that said, if this is what, nobody answered you, nobody, but we're not supposed to be doing that in the board meetings. We're supposed to conduct ourselves in a pretty even-keeled, quiet manner. We can have conversations differently at different times, but we can't get into that kind of conversation, especially an inflammatory conversation at a board meeting. So again, I knew what you were doing. You were basically putting his words into an image to make a point. But to me, it was gut. It was just disrespectful because of family, but I knew that's not what you were saying. But it was just, it was mocking. It was mocking people that, weren't in line with you on that particular issue. I think that's all. I'm not going to continue to be worse. Thank you for letting me speak. Is there any other discussion to be had?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So I was hoping to hear something from Steve, and all I've heard is justification. So I think that for the public, I think we need to take a stance as a board.
Deb, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. Lisa had a question and she had started talking out of here. Sorry. I'll call you right afterward.
Yeah, so I was on the board at the time of those discussions, and I'm luckily not, so I haven't seen this either. But this is a conversation about how all of the board members are conducting themselves. I just want to say that in the very short time that I've been on this board, I have been yelled at. I've had fingers pointed at me. I've had emails that I thought were very condescending, and people have cursed. And so I completely agree that the goal should be the respectful conversation. But I just find that this is not the only incident that is going beyond what this policy is asking for.
Any other further discussion? Deb?
So as I was about to say, I had hoped to hear something from Steve and I didn't. And I think in response to public that have reached out to me and have addressed the state, that I think as a board, we need to make a statement that this was not okay. This was not a good use of the TRSU email. This was not appropriate. And so I would like to make a motion that the GMUSD board approve and issue the following censure. Whereas Steve Perani has engaged in conduct that is not in alignment with the board's standards of conduct and ethics, specifically by using the TRSU email account to send email that is deemed sexist, racist, and completely inappropriate. And whereas the GMUSD board has a responsibility to ensure that all members of the board adhere to the highest standards of conduct and ethics. And whereas the board must always ensure that all members serve as an example to students in its district. And whereas the board has a responsibility to ensure that all members of the board are held accountable for inappropriate actions, that it be resolved that the GMUSD board does hereby censure Steve Perani for his actions, and be it further resolved that the board directs him to immediately cease and desist from engaging in any further conduct that is not in alignment with the board's standard of conduct and ethics, and be it further resolved that he be directed to take immediate steps to remedy any harm caused, and that he provide a written apology to the board and the community for his actions. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Is there discussion on this
I
motion?
don't think it was.
Oh,
I'm sorry, was that Rick second?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a discussion on the motion?
yes. I find this discussion appalling. I really do. The mascot is an abomination. The mascot is racist. The mascot is sexist, categorically patriarchal. Chieftain is a bunch of, I'm sorry, you asked me to talk about
The
these
motion.
points,
No.
these points.
I
I'm
just want to
discussing-
clarify is what you're talking about is the motion.
I'm talking
on the
about the
table.
motion. The motion includes these things about sexist, racist, I don't know what else. But, the thing that is disturbing. We just take a breath. When you make a mascot out of the race of people, and indigenous people are the only people who are making a mascot, it devalues that race. On the evening that we had this discussion, a young girl was being harassed because of her race. When you demean one race, it makes it okay to demean the next race. It means it's okay to demean.
Steve, we gotta talk about this, the motion that's on hand.
Okay.
I'm not trying to stifle, it's just discussing the motion. The motion is Deb is out. I cannot repeat that. For censure. That is the motion on the table. That's what we need to discuss. And I'm happy to, but I just.
Okay.
Are you still thinking?
I'm open.
All right.
I just want to say that I see the throughput of your thought process and the direct line between the racist mascot and school branding that we stand behind and uphold and say is acceptable, but we don't all. Many people do say this is acceptable. So I, for one, cannot vote to censure, can't ever say that word, Steve, for using images to express his feelings that racism is despicable, using satire and imagery that evokes it evokes the pain of families, Indigenous people. There's a genocide of Indigenous people right here in this country, and we that image up and we make people a mascot, and we're fine with it. But Steve uses satire, and he's racist. We are racist. We are using a racist mascot and name associated for our school. So the hypocrisy is too much for me on that. So I will not be voting to censure Steve because the hypocrisy is too great.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to censure
Yes, that's
Steve?
right. Lisa and Deb.
Okay. Can you tell which one was the first? Lisa.
There have been other issues where I have considered and discussed with board members bringing up censure for people other than Steve. And decided not to because I thought that there was an opportunity to actually come together to talk person to person about why something was harmful or wrong to me. And I just thought that that was a better way to do it. And that we had a better chance as a board of coming together by having those conversations and just being real and being people with each other rather than taking an official motion and taking it outside of that realm. And that's what I would hope would happen in this situation. And I absolutely appreciate the pain and the things that people are expressing to Steve. And I think you very much have a right to do that. But I don't see how an official action, even without legal consequences, helps to have us come back together and function.
for the public.
Deb?
So a couple of things. One, it was just not one email. There were several. So it's not just the one. And had Steve said at the beginning of all this, you know what? I was wrong. And I'm sorry that I offended anybody. But he didn't. He's just continued to justify it, as some of the rest of you have. And I think as a board, we need to take a stand and say, it's not okay. If a student did that, they would be expelled. And every single board member would make sure that they were. In fact, I remember conversations because a swastika was put on the back seat of a bus seat and people were outraged. So we're outraged about that, but we're not about this. And if a student does something wrong, they get called out on it. But because it's a board member and other board members aren't nice or whatever, I think we need to take a stand and just say it's not okay. But that's up to you. And that's all I have to say. I don't think it's right. I think he should apologize to everyone. And that's my opinion.
Further discussion on the motion? I'm just going to go ahead and ask for a roll call.
Rick?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kate? No. Katie?
No.
Steve?
No.
Lois?
I'm abstaining.
Lisa?
No.
Josh?
No.
Scott?
Yes.
4 in favor, 5 opposed.
So motion is defeated. Okay. Next order of business.
Can I ask for a recess for just 5 minutes to deconvene?
Is there, so
Can I
there's
make a motion for
Yeah.
recess?
Second? All in favor, 5-minute recess?
Aye.
All right, so we're back in session. And we are recording again. So the next order of business is policies, first read. Did everybody take the time to read these prior to the meeting?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so does anybody have any questions about H3, community use of school facilities? Is there a motion?
Motion
Or-
accepted.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
So
Sorry.
for first read, there's
Yeah.
nothing to
Oh,
do.
yeah, you're
First
right.
read,
I think I'm
Joanne.
just,
Yeah.
You're-
We're all a little around. First read, there's something for anybody to do.
okay. All right, so no changes suggested for H3. Any changes? So C2, board meeting agenda preparation and facilities. Any changes suggested for that policy?
It should say board meeting agenda preparation and distribution.
Is that just a typo on this?
That's just a typo on these.
So the policy is
The
okay.
policy is correct.
Okay. So what was that?
The name of it is board meeting agenda preparation and distribution.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just it's a typo in the title on this. It's not in
The policy.
the policy itself. It's
All right. And then first read of F11.
Can I
Sorry,
just
yeah.
make a statement about the policy?
Yes.
I don't know if that's the right. So the one concern that I had about this policy is that in setting the agenda, my understanding of it is it's at the discretion of the board chair and the superintendent to put something on the agenda or not, right? Which makes sense. But then there's also this piece of if a majority of the board wants to ask to put something on the agenda, they can do it at the very beginning of the meeting, right? But then it hasn't been warned. And we've had lots of times where we didn't take action because it hadn't been warned. And so just with the policy as it reads now, it seems like the only way a majority of the board could actually warn and then take action on something would be to call a special meeting. And I know people are not happy with special meetings. So I'm just wondering about, like, is there a possibility of another way for a majority of the board to get something on an agenda before the beginning of a meeting?
I think I understand what you're asking, so I think, so I don't know if that's something we can change in policy. because
Pam, this is not a
This is
required,
not-
this is a
it's not
recommended
recommended.
policy. You don't have to have it at all. Because you don't have to have it at all, you can decide to make alterations to it if you want to.
Maybe on Monday, we can look into how we can word it in such a way that we can figure this out. So if you give us, look, this is the first read, so if we take into consideration what you're asking, the policy committee will look at the policy and see if there's a way around the problem.
Okay, yeah, that would be.
Does that work for you? And then it'll come back and we can discuss it again.
I'm just confused about like the statutory part of it, like the warning, like that's the stuff I just want to make sure, like that's what I'm saying, I don't know what committee.
So there's a statutory piece that has nothing to do with this policy.
Okay,
This policy is talking about regular meeting schedules and conduct and agenda preparation. And the agenda preparation is not by statute.
no, what I'm saying is, if so I know this isn't like required, it's recommended, if we change this, then are we gonna in some way be, going against the statutory part? That's what I'm
As
trying to.
long as we don't try to do something that statute
Right.
forbids, which if we did, the policy would be void anyway.
Okay, that's all that's all.
I think the piece that you're getting at is if a majority of board members are saying they want something on the agenda, how do they make that happen before a meeting happens?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. And so just under agenda preparation, the sentences, the inclusion of items on proposed agendas will be at the discretion of the board chair and superintendent. So something there, unless recommended by the majority of board members, in which case it would be on, that's not the right word, but.
You have to follow, statute requires that you follow open meeting law. Statute requires that you follow Robert's Rules of Order. Statute doesn't require that you have to have warned an item prior to taking action on it. You can add items during additions and deletions, and you can vote on them. That is completely legal, despite the people who have said that it's not. It is. It's not best practice because then people get upset,
Right.
but it is best practice to make sure that they have been warned. However, if the board says as a majority at the start of a meeting that they want to add something, you are absolutely allowed to take action on it. That is completely within the rules.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about best practice, that it
Yeah.
would be nicer if we
If you
could let
could warn
people
it
know.
first, yes.
Okay.
2G.
So the next first read, student clubs and activities. Any suggestions for changes? And then H4, distribution of non-school sponsored literature in school. All right, so those will move on for second read, and then C2 will go back to the policy committee for reevaluation.
Well, and we might as well, and look at H3, 2G on H3, which Katie just pointed out to me,
Okay.
and read it and see, it seems like there's a mistake. Read it out loud.
The superintendent shall establish procedures for the use of school facilities by community members which, at minimum,
And G says shall permit possession or use of a firearm or dangerous deadly weapon.
I think we're missing.
Yeah, so we're just, looks like we're missing the word not. I just wanted to, in case somebody goes home and reads this and, okay.
Where is
So
that?
then the word not will be inserted for the next read.
Permit.
Okay.
Just wanted it on the record.
So the word not will be inserted
Yes.
into G? Okay. For catching up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've already talked about F11H4. And then the next item in new business is a possible reschedule of the GMUSD December board meeting. At the finance committee meeting, you proposed 3 dates
Yep.
that were possible and we took one of them. So now we're down to 2.
That's right.
I couldn't remember the second one, but the first one was like just days from now. So I felt.
December 11th
Yeah.
and the 18th.
Yeah, so I don't know, I don't know how people feel about, I know it's not always everybody's favorite, but just maintaining the meeting, because it's just the timing, the spacing.
What's the maintain?
So the issue is that school vacation begins, the last day of school before break is December 20th. So December 21st is the first day of school vacation. While Cheryl and I will be around, most of our administrators are not, our student representatives are not. That you, when we have board meetings that are scheduled during vacation times, you're in effect taking away possible vacation time from some of your administrators. Teachers aren't always available to attend. So we appreciate the idea that we might want to have looked at moving that. It's just so packed that there's, if we move it, you're likely to then wind up with a bunch of other people who can't come. So from my perspective on it, leaving it on the 21st is the best, is a better bet. And in the future, if we look at when I think we don't have it scheduled for the first time during vacations in February or April. But the time to make that change would be now, not the month before. So up to all of you.
I'm good at leaving it.
Yeah,
All right, so motion to keep it on,
yeah.
okay, all in favor of keeping the meeting on the 21st of December?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we'll stand changed. Okay, on to old business. Second read of policies and possible adoption on this one. So F1, student conduct and discipline. Changes, concerns? Do you want me to just read through all 4 of them and do one motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great, thanks.
F2, search and seizure of students with school personnel, I'm sorry, by school personnel. F9, transportation. And G10, cybersecurity. The only thing I noticed is it actually is just, it's that.
Goodness.
It was just a typo on the agenda. Okay, so I will ask for a motion to adopt.
I wanted to be adoptable.
Second.
I'm not sure that the numbers are different on it, but F1, should I name them or just
About all 4
all
of them.
4 policies that we had just discussed?
Okay, all right, and you seconded, right? Okay, so the motion to adopt F1, F2, F9, and G10. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. You're on.
I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss the possible real estate purchase under the provisions of Title I VSA, Section 313A2, the negotiating or securing of real estate purchase or lease options, inviting Todd Para and Laura Fearman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're now in executive session. So we are back in session.
I'd like to make a motion to give Todd Para permission to get info on the flow of the parking lot at Chester Andover Elementary School.
So second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
So We don't have to do roll call, it's just Steve.
No, if you've got somebody online
Oh,
and you
have to
do,
roll call.
then you need to do the
She's
roll call,
recusing-
sorry,
She's
yeah.
recusing herself. Deb is.
Deb recused herself from the
Yeah.
vote, then you're good.
Okay. All right, so everybody but Steve is in favor of having Todd have discussion. Right, I'm just saying it out loud for Amber. Okay, all right. Good to go. All right, next item is future agenda items.
So just that we had previously voted for the.
Did you get that? What you just said, sorry, we only heard half.
I assumed you were confirming that that's what we just voted on. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what was voted on at the last meeting, have this as an agenda item, so future agenda items.
Got it.
Okay, so.
Were you talking about an actual future agenda item?
Yes, that I thought that we had also voted to have the vote on the name on the December agenda.
That's already on the agenda for December.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and then anybody else have anything they want? Okay. So. All right, public comments.
Can I,
Oh.
sorry, can I just go back? We had
That's
a
what
board
part?
retreat. Is it okay to go back to the future agenda items?
Yeah.
We had a board retreat a while ago and we have not yet discussed the action steps. And I definitely feel after tonight's meeting that we need to discuss some action steps related to that board retreat. So I would love to do that. It doesn't have to be before the holidays, but maybe in January or February, if we could talk about specific action steps that we're going to take in regards to that board retreat, that would be great.
Okay. So action steps either in January or February meeting. Okay, all right. Anything else? Okay, public comment? I think is Beth Hart still here? She's gonna share her hand up
Yes,
forever.
yes. Deb, do you want to go ahead?
Can you hear me? Okay. I just want to say, as you know, I stood before you, all of you last February, or most all of you, begging and asking for help with Honore. And, you know, I've been to many meetings since then. And I just want to say, it's disappointing to see what's going on. You know, Green Mountain has had a problem with racism for a long time. And I think we've, you know, you guys have the opportunity to turn it around. I think, you know, at someone from the public, you're watching, you're not working together. And we need to remember that it's for our kids. And so I just beg that when you come back next month, that you can all come back with an attitude to work together as one for our kids in the school. Thanks.
Thank you. Beth Hart's Chester.
Yes.
Yes. Great. Any other members of Randy?
Randy Miles from Chester. I want to thank the board for having me here tonight. I know it wasn't pretty, I know it's pretty ugly, but I think it really needed to be done. I was part of this conversation with some of these emails going back and forth. And for me, it was extremely hurtful because I was made to look like something I was not. And I tried expressing it through verbal complaint, and I also wrote a formal complaint. And through the public access of these emails, I got to see exactly what happened. And I was appalled. I was appalled of how our chair was attacked, how I was attacked, and made to feel like I was a liar. And thank goodness, some of you spoke up and said and explained some stuff that went on. I don't know where this board is going, but these emails, these things have got to be discussed. And this has got to be brought to a head. We're never going to move forward until we understand this and stop this one way or For the life of me, I can't understand why the word chieftain is so persecuted as a racist thing, because it's tied to the image we had. We can look at that, but we can't look at the name Green Mountain. You overlook that so much. Chieftain, Green Mountain Chieftains, that's tied to it. The school itself is tied to it. If we're looking at this word chieftain because of the words direct and indirectly, you must look at everything. And what does that cause? A huge problem for everybody. And you want to talk about money? That'll be a lot of money. You, as a board, solved this problem way back when. Everybody came together, the community and the board, and we got rid of the image. And I wasn't so against the image. The only part that really offended me is that we didn't ask the tribal leaders what they thought. We chose it upon ourselves to do something. So we let it go. We had no understanding from them. But they do not want to be wiped out again either. They want their imagery out there. They want respect. They're all about that. I'm a Boy Scout leader. And with the Boy Scouts, there is so much Native American put into that with respect and loyalty and all this stuff that Native Americans stand by. It's an amazing thing. And the boys that come through the Boy Scout go out better human beings because of this knowledge. We should invite Native Americans to come to our school and listen to them, because there's a lot of learning we can do from it. So please try and do and think of the right way to vote for this. And stop calling the chieftain names such a racist thing. It's not implied. It was never intended that, but for those kids of 1971. They didn't think of this as a racist word. Intent is a powerful word.
Bye.
Right.
I would look to the five of you that voted to not enter. Put yourself in the position of being the high school principal. You had very clear actions all the way through. If you do nothing, are you doing the right thing? No. As a principal, you definitely would not have done what was done here. And it's setting a really bad precedent. Fortunately, the students that were here didn't have to see it unless they're home. But you can't do both. Your principal runs the school, you guys are supposed to oversee it, you both adhere to the same type of principles. You can't just, no, we're gonna sweep this under the rug because we don't feel it's the way to do it. We're right and around. And you have to actually look at this in that direction. There's no other way that you could actually say, yes, we rectified this problem. We didn't rectify the problem. We just swept it under the rug, and that is it. There was no apologies, there's no nothing. If you were in the principal's office and you apologize, that carries a lot of weight. But when you just flat out try to, oh, this isn't it, or no, this is, but without any real explanation, I think you gotta look a little further and see what you're actually doing to basically our own principal by taking his guidelines that he would take and do, and you guys not follow. Thank you.
All right, so the next meeting date, we agreed will be the 21st, 6 p.m. in Mount High School. Motion to adjourn. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn at 20:35.